Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so could you tell me your name and what kind of work you do and what kind of things you've done with hackerspaces here in Philly?
My name is Katherine Bennett. I create interactive installations, responsive installations. I work with programming, custom electronics, and light. Philly, there's a lot of different community spaces. There's a lot of different hacker spaces. I've been working with the Hacktory recently, attending their meetings, kind of hanging out, seeing what endeavors that they're trying to plan for this coming year in regards to events. They've also been collaborating with Hive 76, which is another hackerspace on Spring Garden, for the PAFA. They have some event coming up. So both of those two hackerspaces are working together. So I've been helping them brainstorm and plan and kind of prototype some initial ideas in order to get that off the ground.
Okay. So being someone who works in the sort of field that people that use hackerspaces work in, what benefits do you see for yourself or in general working, collaborating or working in these spaces? Or things that are negative, or both?
Right. I guess for me it's more about community. You know, when I first started working within the medium, it was really difficult for me to find other people that were doing the same thing, or even to find the language in order to describe it. It's amazing, you know, within the medium of like electronics and physical computing, the DIY culture in the last 8-10 years is mushroomed, you know, exponentially. So it's great to see more pockets of this around in the community. So for me, it's really more about developing a community, seeing what other people are doing, sharing what I'm doing, trying to get other people involved and really interested within the medium, and also giving them skills, right, in order to work on it. I think one thing that's sort of challenging within technology, there's so many new things coming out. You know, there's Moore's Law. Things keep getting smaller, quicker, faster, different, improved. Engineering is really pushing these things really, really quickly. And so it helps when you're in a community that you don't have to keep up on necessarily everything. You have your other community members to rely on to also help develop your language, as well as resources. You know, I find that a lot of times when I'm in these meetings, I'm just saying, hey, did you see there's this resource now? Did you see this? Do you see what they did to their site? You know, or they're saying, hey, you know, I have this, you know, I got samples of this like really great glow powder, you know. So it's more about kind of staying in touch. For me, it's more about staying in touch with the medium more deeply, as well as sharing that and trying to expose others with skills.
Okay. And when you say sharing resources, what kind of resources are you referring to?
The resources I'm referring to is really just information that's out there. It's not...
So mainly web. You're referring people to web?
Yeah, maybe web, maybe it's vendors, maybe it's certain practices, maybe it's other artists, design firms that are doing interesting things that I think people need to look at, or that might apply to something that they're doing specifically. It's, so far in my practices, it's not about physical resources.
Okay. Okay, the last question is there anything, with your limited, or is there anything that you think would be helpful for you that hackerspaces or some other resource could provide you, or something that you think is lacking, either in your field or in relation to hackerspaces? Is there anything that's that is lacking or that could be improved upon, or that, you know, or you had this idea like, oh, I wish they had this kind of thing?
I think one thing is to make hackerspaces probably more attainable. I know I'm not so sure about the backings of Hive 76 and the Hacktory, but I'm sure there's some sort of funding in place in order to help them exist or to have spaces. You know, once you can have a space, you can do work, you can get more notoriety out there, you can invite the public in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Hive does some really good work at providing some good examples of that. I mean, for me, having a space to operate, which wouldn't be in, currently right now my studio is in my home, but if there was like a second space, like a hacker space that could also be studio for like larger projects, things going on, and also invite the public in. Even though I haven't researched funding opportunities like that, I think, you know, funding in order to establish like those spaces, in order to get like the, you know, also as well, like to get the public in would help.
Right. Well, so far, you know, as far as Hive goes, they tell me that basically the core members, that their rent is only like, you know, it's a 700 square foot space, and they pay $700 a month, which is a great deal, you know, for commercial space. And so basically the core members pay a larger fee per month, and they get full access to the space, and they have dedicated studio or workspaces within that. So that's, I mean, just for an example, that's how they're funding it on a smaller scale, right? But the other ones have, you know, are becoming more commercialized, or, right, and they're getting funds from, you know, classes, or they're, you know, renting resources out, and, you know, so I think that's like a scale issue, you know, but I think
there's other ways to tackle it. I know there's this space in the Bronx that is a gallery space, and, you know, and as, you know, they provide so many shows a year, and I think that there's some sort of funding mechanism in there that they get, probably some sort of grant in order to help support the space. And then I know that the fellow that runs the space actually lives above it. So I think that there's, in addition to having something self-sustaining, you know, this idea that you get the rent cheap, you divvy it up among members, and then you offer classes to help subsidize the rent you paid. I think that that's one model. I think the model that I'm more interested in, to see what other sort of public funds might be out there in order to help support it, provided you're providing some sort of mechanism for the community, whether that's shows, whether that's classes, whether that's workshops. You know, that's something that's more integrated into the community.
Right.
In order, you know, just to work.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.